Hello, hello, welcome. Good morning, Marlene. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. If you are here with us live today, go ahead and let me know how you're doing. And if you're catching the replay, go ahead and hit #replay, but still let me know how you are. I'm super excited for today, day 3 of our Heart Mending series. Today we're all going to be about the Akashic Records, and we're going to be tying in some of the things that we have talked about from day 1 and day 2 and how the Akashic Records can help facilitate it in healing and mending. And I'm also going to be sharing a little bit of my personal story in terms of how I discovered and uncovered certain aspects that I needed to heal, and how the Akashic Records had assisted me in that journey. So excellent. We've got Marlene is feeling good, more love today. Yay, Courtney, I'm glad you're doing good. And we are ready for another day. As I'll be talking today over some different issues that can happen through being in an event, a relationship, a circumstance that has left you with a broken heart, I want you to be thinking about some questions or things you might have. At the end, where we were doing the healings the last 2 days, today I'll be answering some questions, and I'll be channeling the answers from the masters, teachers, and loved ones. So you are able to ask a question about love, about relationship, or about pattern or healing or something like that. So I'll go over the details of that a little bit toward the end of the class before we do the Q&A part. So let's get started. So the Akashic Records, I know that some of you are familiar with them and others might not be at all. So the Akashic Records are an infinite field of, an energetic field of infinite possibilities. And so every deed, thought, and action since the inception of your soul is recorded in the records. So we can access the records and receive guidance, love, and support on any and all areas. And when I first heard the Akashic Records defined as this is what like clicked for me, because it had been exactly what I was searching for, a life tool that I could receive guidance from in order to get me out of this tricky situation that I had found myself in. And to go back when I was younger, I was always so intrigued by the Akashic Records. I used to have dreams of the pyramids when I was little. I would have all of these, kind of premonitions. Like I would just know the phone was going to ring and it would ring. I just knew what somebody was going to say before they could say it. And as I got older and grew up a little bit more, I really started to disconnect from this because I didn't really have anyone in my world or sphere that had any sort of spiritual inclination, let's say, and or interest. And so I just didn't have any place to go with it. And so I began to disconnect. And I know that this is really, really common for a lot of people. When we're little, we all are so close to our intuition. We're all so much more connected to the angels and our guides because we don't really know differently. It's what we remember. We're closer to remembering these type of things. And as we disconnect, it can also cause us problems going forward because we immediately have this quick kill switch on our intuition. And that was created for me growing up in the environment that I did, where this kind of stuff was really not safe to have or to talk about or to be or to do. And so I really had installed this kill switch, the way I saw it and the way it was told to me was that it was like just a light switch, right? Like anytime my intuition would come on, I would just shut it down because it wasn't, why on earth would I listen to it? It was made more sense to make a practical decision or a practical choice in life. And let me know if any of you have had experiences like this when you were little. where you were much more tuned into your intuition. And then over time that had kind of faded for whatever reason. So to come forward, when I heard this definition again, it was at this moment where I kind of like feel like I woke up in my life in a really bad place. So many things had happened and changed so rapidly. And what should have looked so like romantic or so magical of a journey on a piece of paper or in a novel, really just led to way too many changes happening to me too quickly, where I didn't have a clear enough sense to listen to my intuition and give things time to unfold. And I found myself in a very toxic relationship. And obviously it did not start out very toxic. These type of things never do. They seem like all your wildest dreams coming true. And so I ended up in a situation that was, by definition, was full of like narcissistic abuse. And for anybody who has suffered any type of abuse, especially when you're little, it's really damaging on so many levels, and it really distorts our perception of reality and our perception of what we're able to do around it. It becomes bigger than us, and we're either terrified of it or feeling prisoner to it. Like in my situation, I felt very trapped by it. Like somehow I hadn't made the right decisions. I hadn't done enough. I wasn't enough. And that this was just like the end of the line for me. And this was what it was going to be, because this is where my children were brought into, was in this particular relationship. And I had a very close friend who was very intuitive, and she's a Reiki master, and she's just so lovely and would always be there to catch my calls, which was not something I had in the country where I was living. I didn't have any community here. That was one of the things that left me so in the dark to get into this relationship that seemed so beautiful on the surface, but not had time. Like I was so without a community, and I didn't realize how much of being in community was supportive to me until I was without community and in a place where I really needed it. And so even as intuitive as my friend was, even as beautiful of guidance and support she was trying to give me, I couldn't make decisions based on what somebody else was telling me. And even though she was intuitive, she was not an Akashic Records practitioner. And she still does really great healing work and gives a lot of really accurate information. But I just, no matter out of whatever love and kindness of anybody's heart could the answers be for me of what to do in this. And so as I kept praying for some sort of support out of this abusive relationship, I came across the Akashic Records. And when I heard this and understood them to be a life tool where I could seek these very specific how-to steps. So it'd be one thing if a friend is like, yeah, you got to get out of there. And I'm like, yeah, obviously, but how do I do that? You know, how do I do that? I'm very limited on how I can work here. I don't have a work visa in my area of integrative medicine and like all of these things. So I really needed some clear-cut answers. And so I dove in. I've always been intuitive and in somewhat of a healing field. And it was the moment that changed my relationship and my life going forward, because I was really able to get in and heal these particular patterns and understand why I showed up in an abusive relationship, because that is not absolutely anything I'd ever do with my conscious mind, right? And nobody that I've worked with would ever do with their conscious mind or conscious heart. And so it really allowed me this space to have some grace over, yes, this is where I am at. It is not pretty. It feels horrible. It allowed me to suspend those feelings of shame and for guilt about being in a very abusive relationship. And because I had suffered enough of the abuse, I didn't need to be self-punishing anymore. And I think that was like the first way that my master's teachers and loved ones really connected to me was to hold that space, to not make myself feel shame about it. And that does come off in layers. And as I got into it, obviously I realized it would help more than just me. It could become to help other people. And I continued my studies and still continue my studies beyond healer, deepening my levels and understanding and doing work with ancestral programs within the Akashic Records. And it's been just this beautiful path that unfolded. So I'm going to talk a little bit through the lens of my experience. And so we're going to start looking at maybe some patterns that have showed up and how the Akashic Record helped me. And if some of these patterns resonate with you, please let me know and we can expand on them a little bit. So one of the things about narcissistic abuse, and this is not to rat out my ex-partner, this is not to make anybody feel I'm not trying to put anybody in a box. I'm just trying to pull apart the behavior, because whether there's a title to it or not, chances are most of us have experienced it in either the last situation that left us heartbroken or at some point in our life. So one of the things that starts off is like love bombing, right? And that can be really overwhelming if you haven't experienced that before. And love bombing can come in directly to you, where everything is just you are like the puzzle piece that fits for this person. You are the key and they're the lock, these type of metaphors, right? And this usually happens really, really early on. And it also plays into this sort of love conditioning. I want to call it like the Disney conditioning, if you will. I grew up in the generation of the movies, of all of the princess movies, right? And so most of the love stories of that kind of era are all of a sudden we are a prince or we are a princess or prince in the, depending on your gender and identification, you are one and you are just waiting to be completed by the other. And this other this counterpart shows up in your world, and then everything is just perfect. And it's like, there's this one that is out there for you. And so having some of this societal conditioning running in the background, even if you don't buy into it in the foreground, it can still have an effect on the way we respond when somebody treats us like this. Love bombing can also show up in the form of a dream, right? So say you meet somebody, you're with somebody, and they have this very beautiful dream about where your future is going to go. Everything that they want somehow lines up with the dream that you saw for yourself, or if you're a little bit nervous, rather than having some really deep conversations about how you two can weave these dreams together, it just becomes that, don't worry about it. It's all going to be fine. It's going to be great. You're right off into the sunset type of thing. Everything is just going to work out. And again, it's leaving it up to, like I talked about, time. Time doesn't innately do anything. If you just allow this beautiful dream to be out in front of you and don't take actionable steps together with a person or a partner, then that dream is not going to manifest the way that it is painted. And so as I was able to wake up and heal, I was able to see, where else have I seen this in my life? And I was able to look back and see some of these glimpses of this behavior throughout my childhood, that it was really painted for me that we could just be anything that we wanted to be, and that if we just, that's what we wanted, we could do it. Really, there were no limits in front of us. And where some of that's a really beautiful energy to feed a small child, there needs to be some backup about how to go about and do that. It can take some very aligned action steps to get to be where you want to be. Things just don't get handed out to you. And so we had I had a very distorted view of reality back in that subconscious mind, back in that moment where my little 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10-year-old self was viewing the world, because our emotional and cognitive capacities don't mature until our mid-20s. And so these type of things that we pick up when we're little really play into how things show up for us as adults if we haven't, looked at them. And so gaslighting is like another pattern that I was able to understand and heal. What part of me was attracting this type of relationship to show up as the fulfillment of my intention to manifest a loving and supportive relationship? When I started to look at it from the point of view of, I set intention X, which was a loving and supportive relationship, and this is what the universe filled up. What the heck is the fine print in the middle? Because I am not seeing that. And this is where the Akashic Records was able to go in and really help me pull apart these patterns and behaviors. And so gaslighting can be direct or indirect. And that is, gaslighting is kind of a behavior that makes you feel like you're crazy, right? Somehow your view of reality, your point of view, your perspective is just not ever validated. And in a healthy interaction, your point of view can be absolutely validated and be your point of view. And we don't have to agree, but my point of view can be valid and validated and agreed, and that it's my point of view. And so it gets really difficult to feel like you're coming from any place of being seen or being heard when your perspective or point of view is constantly being invalidated. It can also be kind of indirect, like lying to, right? So you can be with somebody who constantly lies, or you can be with somebody who constantly lies, but in a way that it's like, oh, you know what? It's really okay. It doesn't bother me. And really that person is having an issue, and they're not going to say that they're having an issue. And this is a behavior I grew up with greatly. And it was just because the energy of my environment in my childhood, everything was just supposed to be just like, everything just is going to be happy and it's great. And it aired on the side of toxic positivity, that we kind of skip over emotions and we go straight to the positive. And there's a lot of value being held in those emotions. And like we were talking about yesterday, understanding what those emotions are, and on day one, and those emotions, those various aspects of our being, they speak to us through those emotions. And it's really important for them not to be stuck in these places. We need to feel them and allow ourselves time to feel them. And then we can give ourselves a time limit and say, you know what, I'm done being sad for now. I'm going to void out the sadness, and I'm going to choose to feel peace. Maybe you're not ready to move to joy, but peace is a good one, right? So then you're going to allow yourself to feel that peace. And so by doing so, you're processing a large chunk of grief, of anger, of sadness, whatever you're processing, you're letting it out. So it's not continued to be carried around. It's not damaging you. It's not leaving stagnant energy on you. And it's certainly not attracting more of it. And so by having this jumping straight to positivity leaves a very big gap for where we need to heal. And this can also show up ways that can really affect us, is being in a situation where somebody is like hypercritical of us. And especially when we're little, if we are criticized in a way that isn't supportive, I mean, that can build that inner critic so quickly. And that is so hard to untangle. We all have a really harsh inner critic. And so by being able to go in and do some healing with the Akashic Records, I have been able to lessen the burden of that inner critic showing up, in especially in terms of feeling like I was somehow damaged or broken, or being in a relationship that was so dysfunctional from my point of view, but not from the other person's point of view. Was able to just peel off the shame and the guilt around that. And that has been extremely healing, to not carry forward such a harsh inner critic. And it has dramatically changed my world to where I do not have any people that have shown up in my current reality with any sort of inner critic behaviors. It's been amazing. All of the new friends and community and people that I have met and come across, that one is definitely missing. And I love to see how all the work we've done on the inside shows up in our external world. And that one felt really, really good for me, because that was a very damaging one to have. And so again, I kind of did the pattern identification through the narcissistic abuse, which is more or less emotional abuse. And I hope that some of those patterns made sense to you. If there's any other patterns you want me to talk about as far as abuse is concerned, please let me know, type them in the chat box. If you want, you can get a hold of me later and I can go into more depth about a specific pattern if you would like. Regardless of what abuse you have suffered, what heartbreak you have suffered, utilizing the Akashic record can help you go in and identify those patterns you picked up from your younger years, through your relationships, through your formative years. Also, what patterns you have brought in. So you can have familial patterns, right? You can be carrying something from great-great-grandfather that you had no idea was affecting how and what you are attracting into your reality. And going into the Akashic records provides a very, very safe and held space. The Akashic records, as I hope you've experienced in the last 2 days through the healings, right? The masters, teachers, and loved ones create this sacred space where judgment is absolutely suspended, and they are there to just love on you and support you and provide healing in any fashion that they can. And so it's a really safe container to go in and look at some of these otherwise scary patterns. Like before I was in the Akashic records, I was afraid to go look at some of these patterns. I was really, really scared to open that closet and to look under the rug, so to speak, because I didn't feel like I was in a safe space to see. I felt like there might be a monster inside of me creating this awful reality of I kept having these relationships that didn't work out. And this last one that was supposed to be this beautiful relationship that I brought children into was so toxic. And so having this really safe place gave me the courage and the support to go in and look. As far as your love journey is concerned too, we can have patterns that repeat ourselves, as I've been talking about for the last 2 days, utilizing the Akashic records. Actually, we can create these loops with these patterns, and we can have these loops like, I am not worthy, I am not worthy. That was a huge loop for me. And I wasn't even aware that was running in the background. And it would sometimes, I could hear it sometimes, like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. Like, I just didn't even know. I was so unsafe. And so by going in and clearing out these loops within us and within our love journey is going to dramatically shift what shows up in the future and how we feel about ourselves in the current present moment. You get to do a lot of inner child healing. As I mentioned, the emotional brain is not developed into our mid to late 20s, depending on your gender. So anything that happens before then, the closer to your childhood, the more healing tends to need to take place only from the fact that from a child's perspective, the way things are interpreted can leave a lot of room for healing, especially if a trauma occurred in your childhood. Being able to go in a safe space and sit with your inner child and let her or him reveal to you what they want to share, how they're ready to heal, how they want to come forward with you is really, really powerful. And it allows you to feel more whole, more complete, and a lot more self-love. It is such a key from connecting in to that source of love and rebuilding those internal foundations is by working with your inner child. And again, your inner child can be anything from a few minutes ago all the way back to in your conception. And so by healing and uniting your being, again, we can bring in all of those aspects. We can, in the Akashic Records, you can unite your emotional body, your physical body, your mental body, your spiritual body, your inner child, and your ego to help bring you back into a whole being after aspects of you have been shattered or frozen in time over a heartbreak, over a life event, over the loss of somebody. Bringing all of those bits back to be healed, again, dramatically shifts how you connect to your internal source of love. Another really cool aspect I touched on a little bit when I'm talking about that you can carry in patterns from great-great-great-grandfather, you can do ancestral trauma healing. You can also carry trauma in from your ancestors. There's a study done that a group of rats were given a shock. Rats or mice, I don't remember. Either way, a small lab creature was given a shock right before they were introduced to be able to eat. And so they began to associate having this like trauma shock right before food came with food, trauma shock, food, food, trauma shock. And so this went on for a certain amount of time. This particular generation of rats gave birth to a new generation of rats. And this second generation of mice never received any shock, but as they were introduced for food, they had the same measurable trauma shock through their nervous system that the first generation did. So trauma is passed down from ancestor to ancestor. It comes in through our DNA. And by working the Akashic Records, anytime you're doing these big pattern healings, you begin to clear out, and detox this old trauma actually from your DNA. It comes out from your cells, and you get to pick and choose and receive what you want to put back in its place. And so you're kind of cleaning up your DNA. And I just thought this was so beautiful when I came across this, because I never felt my parents did anything from a point of view of ill or mistreating me, but I could clearly see that they were parenting from their own trauma. And so, yes, there are points that maybe I didn't agree with, or things that I'm really grateful to not have to be subject to, but I am very grateful for all they did give me and have been able to heal and not have to live from their trauma. As I've done it for myself, I've cleaned up that DNA, and I know wholeheartedly that has shifted, and going forward, that is not a burden my boys will have to carry. And it is one of my goals as a mom to not parent from my own trauma, but to clean up that DNA line for anybody going forward, for them, for their kids, anything going forward. And so by doing that, you are really thanking and releasing your ancestors from their burden as well. Yes, exactly. You do clean up your ancestors' DNA as well. And the ancestors are here. They're showing up in a really big way right now. They, part of the veil being very thin is our ancestors are around us. and really working to kind of modernize some of the ways your ancestors maybe gave and received love. Some of the ways they went about things maybe worked for them, maybe did not work for them at the time, but they certainly aren't going to work for us nowadays. And really, I've come across a lot of clients the last week or two. It goes in phases that feel like they have been working so hard to clean up this ancestral burden they've been carrying. And it's really beautiful when it comes to the surface, we're able to clear that, and using the Akashic Records really will do that. And it's so beautiful to see it go back and to go forward. So that's really interesting. I'm glad that you've had that experience too. So all of these things through my own experience and just all of my studies through the Akashic Records. I actually took an ancestors healing course, which it was really cool and super fascinating about how we can start to peel back those energetic layers. And the ancestors are here to help us peel those energetic layers off of our hearts and release those burdens from us. A lot of us chose to sign up to carry certain burdens for our family line. And a lot of us who signed up also chose to have them released within our timeline. And so sometimes these really big life events where our heart gets shattered to bits has the potential and possibility to really release an ancestral burden. And so when our heart can be mended back together again, we'll be no longer carrying this burden that we were before, and our life moving forward from this point will be extremely, extremely different in very positive ways. And so all of this together is what inspired me to create what I call the love journey clearing and recalibration. And so it's deeper than just cleaning the energy of your love journey. It's looking at these hidden loops, these patterns, anything associated with abuse. And abuse is a really big one that can be cleaned out of ancestral lines, especially any sort of sexual or physical abuse. It's one that I work a lot with the DNA, the ancestral line in the DNA, is to clear that out, because that type of abuse typically comes through the ancestral line. And so that's a really helpful way. As we're cleaning out this love journey, we always bring in the inner child and all of these aspects of your being. So it's like, I see it like your timeline, but it's a sweep forward and a sweep back as well. And so often during this healing, there will be like a couple of points that come out of your timeline, and you'll be able to see some people have 2 or 3 key points, other people have 4 or 5, maybe you just have 1 key point. It's whatever's coming up at the time, and to clear those and recalibrate it. And then when we recalibrate it, let's see, so it depends. It really, so if you have like 2 or 3 pieces that come up when we're in there looking at your timeline, then we ask, can they be done at the same time? Do they need to go piece by piece? Are they connected? Because sometimes, even though they jump out as 3 separate points, they can be traced back to a different point. Oftentimes the masters, teachers, and loved ones will have me start with 1, and 1 or 2 or 1.5 will disappear from it. So you'll see that there's some overlap. So typically whatever comes up in a healing, we will clear all of that, however we go about it. If it's step by step, if it's all at the same time, I really just follow the energy with it, because that is the key. And they will take you to where you're able to go. They will always meet you where you are at. They're not going to put you through a healing that is going to traumatize you. They have this beautiful vision about what you are ready for, what is going to serve your highest good. And they are going to walk me through exactly how to do that with you. And in the end, they always leave you filled up and full of love. And so that's the recalibration part, is you really get to work with your masters, teachers, and loved ones to bring in. They always bring in energies that they know will serve your highest good, but you get this choice to bring in what it is that you want to manifest, what you desire for you. And so by recalibrating this, once we've cleaned out all of this, any ancestral, any loops, any child, things like that, any abuse patterns, you will not have the same love frequency as before. You will be having a higher love frequency, and you'll be able to attract love into your world, starting with yourself in a very, very different way. Did that answer your question enough, Marlene? Just let me know. So, okay, good. Right now I have this particular healing. It's usually like $222. I've got this one on sale for $147 right now. And I've included a free, audio healing and activation about activating your heart space. And we use the central love column to do so. And so it starts activating that frequency in your heart space of that higher love right away. And so that's a beautiful bonus that I wanted to throw in there for you. So I can put that link in there if anybody wants to read more about it. Let's see if I can copy this. You could read more about it. And again, I talked way more about it in depth today than on there. And if you have questions, please DM me, please email me, reach out to me in any way you want to. On my site, you could even book a free, I think it's a 20 or 30-minute discovery call if you want to have a face-to-face and talk more personally about how it might benefit you in your specific situation. I'm absolutely happy to do that. So, any questions about everything we've covered today? While I'm waiting for just a minute, I'm going to check back because I sent out the email to see if anybody wanted any questions channeled today. All right, so if we don't have any questions about today, you can, if you have a question that you would like to have answered from the Akashic Records, about love, about healing, about patterns, about relationships, go ahead and pop them into the chat box and I will be happy to channel those answers for you. Trying to see if we have anything going on. Oh, sorry, my phone logged me out of Facebook and my email. I'm just logging back in here. Hi, Lois. All right, so we don't have any questions coming in on Facebook. We just have some people saying hi. Any questions in our Zoom chat? Anyone? All right, Kim, what is the best way to celebrate Honor Katie today? Kim, I'm seeing like flowers in a balloon. It's like, I'm seeing the flowers in the color of pink and yellow. They almost look like roses. I just see this great in a big pink shiny balloon. And it just feels like something that you can set up. I'm seeing it in front of a sunny window. If you have anything where it can really capture the light, I'm just seeing we want to put a light around Katie, and adding in these really fun heart-centered colors are really going to help you connect with her energy and she with you. They're going to be very healing for her. I see, yeah, I just keep seeing the flowers and the balloon. Let's see, I feel like this. I'm just, Marlene, I'm hearing that you just need to give yourself permission to know it's not your fault. You need to give yourself permission that you did everything that you could. There's a part of you feeling like you should have done more or could have done this, and she's not letting you move forward because she feels like she failed in some way, shape, or form. As far as learning, I just keep hearing self-forgiveness. Really just forgiving yourself, but forgiving the way things transpired and unfolded. Because I see him, even though he had a disability, it was like not a burden for him. He feels very, he's just really grateful that you were his mom and that he had this experience with you. And he comes through with love. He comes through with nothing but a sense of joy and peace and a little bit of like giggliness. He's very happy. And he's around you. He's like watching I see him from behind, and just to really give yourself permission to not hold yourself accountable for this is what I'm hearing. So I've been pulling in yellow and pinks in meditation for a while. Yay, love it, Kim. Yeah, there's something about the balloon. It's like iridescent and shiny, and that it's like, it's going to amplify that pink. It's like a rose gold, almost to a purple. I love that you've been pulling in that for meditation. Very cool. Yeah, Marlene, it's time for you to listen to that. Like, he's there sending love. It's like time for you. They're showing me just like open the door to receive it. It's time that you can open your heart to receive that love and that forgiveness, and that you're worthy and deserving to move forward. No matter what happened in the past, you still get to move forward in the future. Let's see if we don't have anything coming on. If you want to pop one more question, we can do that. We have a little more time, or if you want me to expand on anything from there, I'm happy to do that. It's your mental body, Marlene. It's the mental aspect of your being. She's thinking her way through everything that happened and thinking there was something she missed. And so she's a little bit pissed that she hasn't found out what that was yet. And so she's like really not going to let you go forward until she knows what that was. And something you can do is just like that journal exercise we talked about on day one, you can have a conversation with her. Just sit in your heart space, bring in your mental body, and ask her how she's feeling. What does she need? Like, let her have her day, let her speak her piece, let her just kind of uncensor whatever it is that she wants to say. Just listen to it and tell her that it's okay and you've got this now, and you appreciate everything that she's done for you, and allow her to come forward with you in a different way. But just sit with her for a little bit and allow her to have her moment. She's also really tired, so let her know that she can rest, and that will be really helpful for her. You're so welcome. All right, Kim is the best. I'm seeing an image, Cam. Just let me get a hold of it here in just a in a way that I can relate it to you. I'm really seeing like going inward. You and your kids, I see little or younger energy, really just going inward and creating a comfort zone that works for the three of you. So I'm seeing the three people, and I'm seeing that comfort zone needs to shift and change a little bit, because this separation is really, really exhausting. It's very draining for your emotional being, and she needs time to grieve. She's like sitting in the closet crying still, because there's so many, she's had to just sort of soldier on. And so she needs time to kind of process this, but to allow this new comfort zone. So creating a comfort zone that brings in a little bit of fun and levity in a way that is separate from the separation. So they're showing it me being really held together and really making sure everybody gets through it okay. But to create some space for some fun and difference. And that's really going to help your emotional body to feel like she can grieve, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Does that make sense? Awesome. Great. All right. Well, that wraps up for today. Oh, go ahead. Oh, Courtney, yay. Thanks for popping on. I have felt some big blocks just toward love too effectively. I see them like they're out in front of your heart, Courtney. They're you feel them, but your inner child, she's not ready for you. She doesn't feel safe if you take them down. She needs to feel safe in order for you to take them down. So spend some time sitting, call in your inner child, and she might show up the age you were you in a relationship that broke your heart. She might show up at like 6 years old. She might show up at 3 years old, and see how many versions of her will come in to your heart space, and just sit with her. And she's going to reveal some things for you, and you might feel her sadness. You might feel why she's scared, and let her know that you are her, and that she is safe now, and that we don't need these. They're like these, I see almost like a red lock. It's like those, the bridge in Paris where they used to have those love locks, but they're like right out in front of your heart. And so you can let her know you don't need these blockages anymore, and that she'll be safe with you. And so by really getting her, and I'm seeing like her in like 3 different ages. So whatever they are, and maybe one comes at one time and 1 or 2 come at another time. Keep revisiting this until she feels safe. Those blocks will begin to come down, and you're going to start to shift your perspective about love. It's about feeling safe for you and for her. So any way that you can keep telling yourself, love is safe, that is a mantra you can use, and you can use with her. All right, we'll just pop onto Facebook. All right, you're so welcome. All right, ladies, and anyone else who's watched the replay, I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed our masterclass mini series on mending your broken heart by exploring your love journey. I am so looking forward to the next masterclass I do. Stay tuned for when I am back and how we can continue our journey of mending our broken hearts. If you have any questions, if you are interested in a love journey clearing, please let me know. I'm always available, reach out, and I'm just wishing you all a very, very beautiful day and a very beautiful weekend. Bye.